Tyrone Bowman Live. Welcome to the program on today and welcome to the conversation. Tyrone Bowman Live is uncompromising, unaltered, and unadulterated. In other words, I tell you just the way it is. I don't add or take anything away from it. Okay, within the recent days, there's been a lot of talk about free speech and censorship, and about individuals not being able to voice his or her opinions, especially in light of the political climate that we're now faced with. So let's have a frank conversation this afternoon or evening, wherever you are. For those of you who will tune in, whether you're in America or you're tuning in from around the world, in different parts of the world, different time zones, thank you for considering Tyrone Bowman Live as a part of your intake. All right. What does the Constitution or the United States Constitution have to say about free speech, the power of the press, censorship? Free speech, the power of the press, censorship. Let's talk about it right now. And I'm going to give several definitions about what censorship is and what it's not. So, to lay the foundation for this conversation, many times individuals ask the question, is it okay for people just to say any and everything out of their mouths? Yes and no. Now, according to this, which is the Constitution, everybody should have a pocket-sized version of it, know what the Constitution says and know what it does not. Because our civil liberties and our rights to freedom of expression of thought, intellectual property, and even vocal words is under attack. We have entered into a point in time in the history of America where individuals are always under attack for his or her thoughts. Now, the word censorship means, according to the digital Oxford version language, the suppression or removal of writing, artistic work, etc., that are considered obscene, politically unacceptable, or a threat to security. Let's deal with that for a minute. What does the Constitution have to say about these things? Well, according to the Bill of Rights, Amendment number 1, that was ratified on December 15th of 1791, regarding freedom of religion, speech, and the press, the rights of assembly and petition. And I quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's what Amendment number 1 says. Now let's break it down. Congress is supposed to be the governing body, the legislative body, where laws are written and where laws are passed. The Senate is the body that is supposed to affirm or ratify these laws. But now it's become increasingly clear that there is partiality going on here in America. Individuals are constantly under attack. Look at the cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel Live, the cancellation of the Late Show with David Colbert, and there are many more that are to come. In the light of the unfortunate assassination of now the late Charlie Kirk, a lot of people have said a lot of things. Some have been good, and many have been inflammatory. And as I've said before, I'll say again right now. To disagree with somebody for their political beliefs or their political ideologies is no reason for individuals to take it to the extreme and end someone's life. That is totally wrong. That is unacceptable. It is not justifiable. One cannot condone what has happened here in America. Just like the assassination of Robert Kennedy, the assassination of President Kennedy, the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They were wrong. Should have never taken place. The bombing of the church where 4 little girls were killed down in Birmingham, which became Birmingham, quote unquote, Alabama, is totally unacceptable. So there are so many things that we can look at and deal with and talk about. One party does not have the right to voice their opinion, and nobody else can retort or react to what is said unless they're being called a traitor or unpatriotic. That's the problem here in America. For people to say ungodly, unrighteous, and terrible things and to praise what has happened is wrong. When 2 Minnesota lawmakers were violently murdered in their homes, people were celebrating. They were happy. They were joyous. So if one political party is going to have the right to say and print and write whatever they want to, well, opposing points of view have to happen as well. That's called political dialogue. I can disagree with someone and be disagreeable with them, but not hate them for their views. But that's not what's happening in America now. Either you are for us or against us, you agree with us, or you're an enemy and blah, blah, blah. Well, let's get down to the facts. What does the Constitution have to say? This is not my opinion. These are not my thoughts. This is what is written according to Amendment 1 of the Bill of Rights. 1, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. How many evangelicals and people are hollering and screaming all over the place that America is a Christian nation? America is not a Christian nation. America may be a religious nation, and you have people from a certain persuasion of belief trying to force their religious ideology upon others. That does not mean that this nation is a Christian nation. Yet you have people who thunderously rail from their pulpits every week that you're going to hell if you don't adhere to their teachings, their preaching, their style of worship, and etc., etc., etc. In America, you have the right to be a Christian, a Hindu, a Buddhist, agnostic, atheist. That is your choice. Thomas Jefferson was an Enlightenment thinker. He was not a Christian. He was an intellectual. He had a brilliant mind. Quite frankly, he was an atheist. There's nowhere in the historical context where you read that Thomas Jefferson ever professed to be a Christian. Yet historians try to pretend, and religionists try to pretend, all the founding fathers, they were Christians. That is not true. Some of them might have been, but they all weren't. And don't forget, Thomas Jefferson wrote what? He was instrumental in writing the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. So why are individuals always trying to make somebody believe and worship and pray the way they want them to? And I'm going to tell you what I know personally. Many of these adherents to so-called Christianity are the biggest hypocrites that I've ever met in my life. Yeah, I said it. Look at all the scandals involving preachers in this nation. And then as soon as one says something to voice his or her free expression of speech, what do they holler? Quote, touch not mine anointed and do my prophets no harm, end quote. Well, reverend or bishops or apostle, whatever you want to call yourself, why were you doing things that were just opposed to the fundamental teachings that you espouse to your congregants? Why were you out there doing wrong in the first place? And when individuals write about it or talk about it or say something about it, all of a sudden they're devilish, they're demonic, they're demons, they're mean, they're hateful. But you all have the right to involve politics in your religious faith, and politics should have nothing to do with religion. But y'all intertwine it in a very covert way, thinking individuals don't know that you are subverting the nonprofit laws under the 501c3 tax exemption status for a nonprofit corporation. That's what PACs are for, political action committees are for, not churches. So, and number two, Congress should not prohibit the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech. Congress doesn't have that right. Congress doesn't have that authority. Now, that doesn't give you the right to stand up in the middle of a building and scream that there's a fire going on. That doesn't give individuals the right to speak recklessly out of his or her mouth whenever they feel like. That doesn't give them the right to just callously write or print anything they want on Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever they're calling these things, Reddit, and all these places, Patreon, etc., on YouTube. That doesn't give people the right just to say what they want to say just because they have the right to say it. There's a time and a place for everything. There's a right time to speak and there's a wrong time to speak. How many times when we were growing up did our parents or parent or guardian or individuals who were responsible for raising us told us to stay in the child's place and not speak out of turn? You know, many times when you listen to people and some of the things that they're saying, they just say whatever, do you love Charlie Kirk? Let me answer your question by saying this. I never knew who Charlie Kirk was. I've heard a lot of things about him. I saw a lot of his videos, and I heard a lot of his speeches. But I have not formulated an opinion about him. And that's the truth, you know. I've always said, and I'll say now, he had a right to his thoughts, his political beliefs, his political ideologies. That's the bottom line. No, I'm not happy about what happened, and I don't celebrate it, and neither will I join in with those who are saying horrible, disgusting, terrible things in light of what has happened. As I said before, he has a family. He has a wife. He has children. He has friends and relatives who love him, you know, and that's the bottom line. And this is not the time for individuals, especially with his memorial coming up this week, for individuals just to go out and say things because they want to say them. You know, I don't love some of the folk I know. I'll just tell you the truth, because some of the people that I know are just not good people. They pretend to be, but when you get to know them, they're not. Now, free speech is afforded to every man and woman in this country and in this nation, but they have to know how to use it and when to use it. Because when you use it in the wrong way, there's a price to be paid. And then the amendment also talks about the freedom of press. True, the press has to write. Publications, print media, social media, digital media, they have a right to print what they choose to print, whether people agree with it or not. You know, many times I see all kind of comments come on my channel. Those are the thoughts of the individuals who are typing them, whether I agree with them or not. That's why I don't censor people from coming on here. I'm not a coward. I'm not thin-skinned. I'm not weak. You know, I could easily turn the comments off. I don't turn them off. I welcome people to come on this channel and express your thoughts, express your opinions, express your grievances, express your differences. I can handle it. So the freedom of the press is guaranteed by Amendment number 1. And then when individuals, they have the right, listen, to gather in a peaceful fashion, to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. He called them protesters. If individuals are protesting in the correct way, in the right way, and they're not violating or breaking laws, they got the proper permits, etc., that's a part of the freedom of speech. But not in today's political climate. You know, when individuals are disagreeing with people, they automatically think that you're their enemy. Just because I disagree with you does not mean I hate you. It doesn't mean I despise you. It doesn't mean that you're not a decent human being. That's not what it means. It just means I disagree with you. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we better get together in this nation and solve these problems before it's too late. Because the world is watching America. And they're paying attention to everything that's happening. America's enemies are watching America. Are you listening to me out there in the ether, in the cosmos, in the universe? The enemies of America are watching the dissension. They're watching the chaos. They're watching the disunity and hatred. So they can look for weaknesses and cracks to try to do what they've been trying to do to this nation forever and forever. You know, America, like any other nation, we've had our problems here in this country and in this nation. Doesn't mean that folk can't get along. I mean, the neighborhood I grew up in, growing up, we fought like cats and dogs. We cussed each other out and did everything. At the end of the day, we were still neighbors. You know, I was raised up in a black, hoodish neighborhood. I was surrounded by Jewish people, Italian people, German people, Irish people. We all fought like cats and dogs all the time. But didn't mean we hated each other. That's just a part of life. And in the end, people would come together, especially in times of tragedy. That's when people should really come together. When tragedy hits, when unfortunate circumstances hits, and the young man who's been arrested for the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I don't know what type of defense his attorney or attorneys are going to try to prepare, because there is no plausible defense. How can you justify? There is no psychoanalyzation of his mind and going into his childhood and talking about what he didn't have and what he didn't have. There is no reasonable excuse. None. It was heinous, ungodly, uncalled for, unwarranted. And I mean this passionately. I'm not just sitting here up under these hot lights to be sitting here on a Saturday afternoon. I'm serious about what I'm saying. I'm not playing. You know, I'm not here for likes, for likes and clicks and views and for people to subscribe. I'm here talking from the depths of my soul. What happened should have never happened. Totally 100 million% wrong. It was not justified, it was not warranted, and it should have never happened. And nobody can justify it. Nobody. And for people to get online and say some of the terrible, ugly, disgusting things that they have said, they should be held accountable for it. Point blank. At a time of mourning, when his family is preparing to memorialize him. And I'm going to show, I agree, Rick. Some people just unlovable. It takes the love of God to love some folk. I'm just going to be honest with you. Here in this nation, civility seems to be a thing of the past. People, just because they disagree with somebody, look at the unnecessary shootings that are taking place in schools around this country. It's unnecessary. Children can't even go to school in peace. The Constitution gives you the right to freedom of speech, but it does not give you the right to, since I'm talking about, let's amendment number 2, I'm going to get into that in a minute. It doesn't give you the right to just go out there and do any and everything unjustifiably wrong. Amendment number 2 says individuals have the right to bear arms, to own guns. Quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Quote, close quote. That's what it says, the right to bear arms. The NRA, the National Rifle Association of America, they stand on the Second Amendment. There's nothing wrong with the Second Amendment. But it does not give you the right to buy guns legally or illegally and go out and do terrible, uncriminalized things with them. You don't have that right under the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment doesn't give you the right to take your guns and go and kill somebody because you don't like the color of their skin or you don't like the accent that they speak with. It doesn't give you the right as a police officer who's supposed to wear the badge of honor and integrity to go out there and abuse your authority. And it doesn't give criminals the right to go out and get illegal guns and decide they just want to go out and kill cops. They don't have that right. You see, I deal with everything on this channel. You have the right to be able to own guns, but you don't have the right to abuse them. And how did that 22-year-old young man get a hold of whatever type of weapon he had? All these questions have to be answered. You know? Were you trying to question my intellectual prowess, Ralph? Or you really want to know? Seriously, you're not stupid. And don't consider me to be somebody's fool. You know what infringe means. I know what it means. You cannot go against somebody else's right to be able to own a weapon. But you've got to get it legally, and you have to get it lawfully. Convicted felons cannot, quote unquote, bear arms, end quote. You know, he had a regular hunting rifle, Anonymous says. Well, where did he get it from? Whose rifle did he have? Was it his? Was it from a family member? All these. No, sir, I need to know. Not in this situation, thank you. All right, I'll tell you what infringe means, if you really want to know. You know, when individuals understand what it means to properly, when individuals want to know what it means to properly own a gun, your background checks have to clear. You have to get a permit. You go to a reputable store. The gun has to be registered. For what purpose are you getting it for? All these things have to be answered. Then I'm going to tell you something that used to happen in my neighborhood growing up all the time. You know? Infringed, according to the Oxford Dictionary, means to break the terms of law or an agreement. Making a, quote, an example is making an unauthorized copy with infringed copyright, infringement. To violate, to transgress, to go against, to undermine. You know, the Second Amendment of the Constitution gives people the right to bear arms, but you have to get it done the right way. And I want to go back to what I'm saying here, because I'm not going to digress or deviate from it. This young man who committed this terrible crime, and in the state of Utah, the death penalty applies. This is a capital punishment death penalty case. Can't get around it. You're welcome. You know, they have to deal with this here. There is no plausibility factor involved. Now, even though I'm a criminal justice major law student, I don't want to get too lawyerly here. But bottom line is this. What the dude did was not right. He's got to answer for it. If he's hung, so be it. If he dies by lethal injection, It is what it is. And his family will be grieving. His family will know what it is to feel pain. His family will know what it is when people start voicing their opinions regarding this. In Pennsylvania, all right, I'll have to fact check that one. I'll tell you one thing, if in Pennsylvania you don't have to register guns that were gifted to you, but if you're a felon, you better not have a gun, a convicted felon, or have been just charged. You better not own a gun in Pennsylvania. That's an automatic 5 years, probably more in this day and age. The Constitution is supposed to be a guideline. And it tells us about freedom of speech, the press, and what it takes to be able to protest. So in the coming days and weeks ahead, we're going to hear a lot about censorship. We're going to hear a lot about people shouldn't have the right to say this and to do that and to do the other thing. All this stuff is going to be a topic of contentious conversations. And individuals are going to try to justify why they think that the Democrats shouldn't say what they want to say, or MAGA Republicans shouldn't say what they want to say. All this stuff is going to be explosive. And especially coming as we prepare to go into the midterm elections. It's going to be nasty. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be contentious. And let me just say this here. People are hurting in this nation. There's a lot going on in this nation. Inflation is out of control. They're trying to rig it to say that it's not. Food prices are out of control. Unemployment is at an all-time high. The housing market is crazy. Everywhere I go, I see constructions that have been halted. Why? Because of deportation. The people who were building the houses, taking care of the farms and owning the stores, they're being deported. When I was growing up, you had what they used to call Saturday night specials. That was a homemade gun. They would take rubber bands and some paper clips and some steel and wood and put it all together. The gang warring days were very heavy when I was growing up. Parents were afraid to let the children go outside lest they get shot and killed from the bullet of a rival gang trying to get someone from the other gang. This is the era I grew up in. Crime was out of control then, just like crime is out of control now. And here on Tyrone Bowman Live, I like to dress in a decent way. And that's why I invite people to come on. If you want to talk, you can talk to me. And as we go into the midterm elections, I would love to talk to some of these candidates. If they got the courage to come on. I don't have to agree with you. You can be a guest on Tyrone Bowman Live. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what the Republican candidates have to say. I want to hear what the independent candidates have to say. I want to hear what the Democratic candidates have to say. I'd like to sit down and interview them. I'm afraid to talk to people who think differently to me. You can hate me. I don't care about that. That stuff don't matter with me. It's not going to kill me if you hate me. It's just going to work on you, not me. I'm a conversationalist. I know how to conduct a thorough, objective interview and listen to your point of view without interrupting you. If I did work for one of these major networks, which I probably never will, but if I did, I would be fair with everybody that I talk to. And I'm not going to have some producer just put something in my hand and tell me this is what you're going to say. Well, you got the wrong brother sitting up here in the anchor's chair. Just because you don't like what the Republicans have to say doesn't mean I'm going to slam them and condemn them and be rude to them on the program. Nah, ain't happening. We're not doing that. You're not going to invite somebody to your house and then disrespect them. You don't do that. You listen to them thoroughly, whether you agree or disagree with what they have to say. They have a right to his or her opinion. That's what some moderators they don't know how to moderate. They're ill prepared. They haven't done their homework. You come into these forums, you want the job, you want the responsibility, but you're scared to be an objective moderator. If they have 5 minutes to speak uninterrupted, let them speak for 5 minutes. And if the opposing point of view has 5 minutes to speak uninterrupted, let them speak. Then each should have 2 to 3 minutes for a rebuttal to what is said. That's how you moderate properly. And to me, a strong nation is a nation that can be able to dialogue and listen to one another. And at the end of the day, whichever party is in power, respect the fact that they won the election, they won the election. And if they're governing based upon on the platform that they said that they will govern the nation by, then you know what, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of it. If they said that's what they were going to do, and they're doing what they said they were going to do, if that's the platform that they ran on, that's the ideology that they espouse, then that's it. Then the next party that comes into office, if they decide to change things, then that's it. But people should be able to sit down, think it out, talk it out. Many times when they have people coming, you know, how they have studio guests and they call themselves talking with people after debates and stuff, it's not representative of a whole nation. You should have people from every background sitting up in there. And don't just ask a couple of questions, give people time to talk. My God. You say you would like to see me debate somebody? I know how to debate. Don't think that I don't. It's not a matter of being too honest, it's just a matter of being frank. I know when to speak and not to speak. You know, I'm a public speaker. I know how to speak properly. Listen, I know how to govern myself in any type of atmosphere, on any type of platform. I'm not a politician. You couldn't pay me to be a politician. I could care less about being a politician. But I know how to be fair, and I know how to be objective. A lot of folk have forgotten. One network says that they're fair and balanced. No, they're not fair and balanced. They're just the opposite. And the other one says, well, we're for the people. Well, you don't act like you're for the people because you're not out there fighting for the people. I remember growing up, my mother used to say this to me. And just I want you to listen. I'm going to tell you a true story. This is not made up. This is not a lie. My mother used to tell me growing up, I don't care if you get into a fight, but you better not run. You don't even have to win it, but you better not back down. One day, my mother gave me $15 to go shopping. And this is what she said to me. I don't care what happens. Don't you let nobody take this money from you. I said, yes, ma'am. She gave me the list. I went to the store. Up popped the neighborhood bully. It's almost like he had ESP, extrasensory perception. And he said, I want the money that your mother gave you. I said, I'm not giving you the money. It's not going to happen. He said, well, if you don't give me the money, I'm going to take out my knife and I'm going to stab you. I said, well, you're going to have to stab me. All I remember is this. I saw him when he took the knife out. I don't remember being stabbed. I remember waking up in the hospital, severely messed up. They had to operate on me. The blade, I still got the scar on me to this day, was 1 inch away from my heart. And this is what the doctor said to my mother. So we did everything to try to get this money out of his hand. We tried to get it out before we operated, but we could not open up his right hand to get the money out. So the funny thing is, when you came into the hospital and you started talking, it's like he subconsciously heard your voice and his hand opened and the money fell out. My hand, the blood was still there. The money was full of blood. And my mother, she came in, she was calling Jesus, Jehovah, and everybody else. And she said, Tyrone, why didn't you give him the money? I said, you told me, no matter what happened, do not let anybody get that money. But I made up in my mind that I was going to get revenge on him. Oh, yes, I did. I plotted it. I thought about it because he was the neighborhood bully. I said, if I don't stop him, he'll continue to bully people. And me. Well, one day we were outside and we had a thunderstorm. And lightning hit the tree. And a branch fell off from the tree. I was outside with a couple of my friends, one of my best friends, I'm not going to mention their name. But she said, here he comes now. And when he came around that corner, I took that branch that fell off that tree and beat the living hell out of him with it. It took 6 people to get me off of his behind. And that is the truth. I've got the scar next to my heart to prove it. It's not a lie. I'm nobody's coward. I do not run from debates. I'm not going to back down. When you believe in something passionate enough, and if that is your conviction, if that's what you really believe, if that is your platform, and that's what you stand on, be man or woman enough to own it. And if that is your ideology, then so be it. And too many times in America, politicians will change their platforms and change what they say they believe for the purpose of getting votes. Win, lose, or draw, stand on your convictions. Because eventually, if people know that you say what you mean and mean what you say, next time they'll vote for you. But you can't just continue to change. You know what? Do I have this book back here? Yeah, let me take a quick minute. Let me pause. All right, I'm reading a book right now called The Appeal by John Grisham. See this book? I'm reading this book right now. Let me tell you what this book is about. So I'm going to read the inside of the jacket. I know this video is a little long today on a Saturday, but I'm making some points. Thank you. Now, this is what the inside of the jacket says. Politics has always been a dirty game, but now justice is too. In a crowded courtroom in Mississippi, a jury returns a shocking verdict against a chemical company accused of dumping toxic waste into a small town's water supply, causing the worst, quote, cancer cluster, end quote, in history. The company appeals to the Mississippi Supreme Court, whose 9 justices will one day either approve the verdict or reverse it. Who are the 9? How will they vote? Can one be replaced before the case is ultimately decided? The chemical company is owned by a Wall Street predator named Carl Trudeau. And Mr. Trudeau is convinced the court is not friendly enough. With judicial elections looming, he decides to try to purchase himself a seat on the court. The cost is a few $1,000,000, a drop in the bucket for a billionaire like Mr. Trudeau. Or Trudeau, whichever way you want to pronounce it. Through an intricate web of conspiracy and deceit, his political operatives recruit a young, unsuspecting candidate. They finance him, manipulate him, market him, and mold him into a potential Supreme Court justice. The Supreme Court justice. The Appeal is a powerful, timely, and shocking story of political and legal intrigue, a story that will leave readers unable to think about our electoral process or judicial system in quite the same way ever again. So John Grisham is a lawyer and an author, and he has written 19 previous novels. One, which is a nonfiction called The Innocent Man, which I read. So, ladies and gentlemen, There's a lot going on. And if you think that this is just a fictitious story, it may be written in a fictitious fashion, but this stuff really happens. It goes on every day in the political jungle. Individuals are recruited, financed, marketed, singled out for, and put in powerful places of power. It's happening right now, and the people are not paying attention to it. I.e., the Senate just changed the rules so that 48 individuals could be approved and put in places of power. The soul of America is fighting for survival. Individuals, whether we're black, white, in between, young and old, rich or poor, middle class, whether we like one another, loathe one another, despise one another, or hate one another, or get along, we better come to the ultimate consensus that your freedom is my freedom. Your ability to think objectively, to speak objectively, the right to write intellectual property, to own it objectively. It's the same thing for me. If I'm an attorney and I'm fighting for my client, his or her rights are just as important as the rights that the prosecution is trying to take away. And with having said that, I think I've held you long enough on this particular episode of Tyrone Bowman Live. So I want to thank you all for your comments. Thank you all for stopping by and coming through. I'm going to take a long break, and I'll probably be back a little later on tonight. So until then, never surrender, never quit.